So welcome everybody. It's Monday morning, so I'm sure you're all sort of recovering from a lockdown weekend. I'm just going to share my screen right now. If I can get this. Here we go. Okay. So welcome, and today we're going to look at a session that's run by the Heartfulness Institute on how we can use meditation and simple detox practices for well-being. My name's Elizabeth, and I live in Central Highlands of Victoria in the forest at the moment, in lockdown. Thankfully, I'm pretty safe here, but also getting COVID tired, like I'm sure all of you are. And some of these practices that we're going to look at today are going to help us with managing stress, loneliness, negative emotions, all those things that are just part and parcel of all our lives today. And if I show you this slide, you'll probably relate to a lot of it. Sitting at home on your computer, doing your coursework or relating with colleagues, or whether you're a student or faculty or you're out in the business world, this has become the new normal for us. You know, in Victoria, we're in our 6th lockdown now. And it's a little, you know, I think we all get a little screen weary, as well as that we're all wearing masks, and for good reason, for protection. But at the same time, what it does is it blocks our ability to really empathize well with each other, because we don't see the faces of the people we're interacting with. And then, of course, there's all the multitasking that we're doing. Phones, computers, phone calls, trying to do all our work online. It's creating a lot of chronic low-level stress in everybody. And if you look at the statistics, even before COVID, we had come to a point in 2017, according to the World Economic Forum, where stress, anxiety, and depression have become the new normal. Basically, 10% of the world's population has been diagnosed with some sort of clinical mental disorder. Roughly half of those, slightly more than half, are anxiety. The other half are mostly depression, and then there's a small number of people with more serious health disorders. But this was pre-COVID, and not only that, but also most primary visits to doctors in the US, and I'm sure the statistics are the same here in Australia, are stress-related. So we can ask ourselves, is this necessary? I mean, we're really pushing it to the limits at the moment with COVID, because we're creating additional stresses on top of this. It will be really interesting to see what the latest statistics are. I'm sure they're pretty scary. But the one thing we do know, and what we're here for today, is that learning simple methods to manage stress, to reduce negative thoughts and emotions, and to develop positivity and peace, it's a pretty simple thing to do. Just like you do exercise for your body, you need practice for this. You need to do it regularly. And it's also better with the help of a trainer, just like when you do physical exercise. I mean, I go twice a week, although at the moment they're on Zoom, but for my physical body, to have sessions with a trainer, because it helps me and it motivates me. The same is true for your mental and emotional well-being. So we're just going to do a little exercise first, what we call a micro practice in Heartfulness, and it's called Checkin. And this is a great way in the morning or at any time during the day to connect with yourself and start to get an understanding of what you're feeling in any moment of time. Not what you're thinking so much, although that's there, but more so what you're feeling. And when we go to the feeling level, it means that we have to involve the heart, not just the mental processes, because the heart is our center of feeling. So in this micro practice, if you can just take a minute, close your eyes. Don't worry about looking at the screen. The flower's not going anywhere. Close your eyes and just bring your attention very lightly and gently to your heart. Now imagine you're opening a doorway into your heart and you're going inside, not to your physical heart, that's there. But now we're looking at your vibrational energy, your energy field. We enter it through the heart. Just try and bring your attention from the outside world inwards and ask yourself one simple question. How am I feeling? Just pause and allow the feelings to come up like bubbles come up from the bottom of a pond to the surface and break. See what comes up. Be like a curious little kid, waiting and watching to see what feelings are bubbling up in your heart. They may not all be nice ones, maybe mixed. It's okay, just let it be. Don't hold on to them, let them go, but just watch them as they surface. Okay, when you're ready, come back up and gently open your eyes. So just as a weather person gauges the weather every morning, what you're doing is you're evaluating or gauging your inner weather when you do this. And it's a really useful thing to do because you can stop, you can pause, you can do this, and then we'll learn some other techniques that help us manage those emotions. But right now, can I ask you in the chat to sort of evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is very disturbed, turbulent, stressed, 10 is very calm and peaceful. How would you evaluate your inner weather right now? Of course, there's no right or wrong in this. There's no good or bad. It's just what it is. But just put your scores up in the chat. Okay, so we have a 7, we have a 5, a 6, yeah. They're all pretty normal. Even 1s and 2s are pretty normal. Oh, we've got a 9. Somebody's in good form this morning. Okay. So this is an amazing, simple micro practice called Checkin that just allows you to go inside, pause for a minute, center yourself and evaluate where you're at. And if necessary, do something about it. You can do this at work by going to the bathroom if you need to get a break from people, whatever you need to do. But I can assure you, if you do this once or twice a day, you'll find that you start to become much more self-aware, which of course is one of the qualities of emotional intelligence. All right, so we don't seem to have anybody who's in really bad shape this morning, although it's okay if you are. There's nothing wrong with feeling disturbed and emotionally imbalanced, you could say, because we all go through that. And with COVID at the moment and another lockdown, and maybe some of you, if you're international students, you have relatives in other parts of the world, or even in other parts of Australia, if you're an Aussie, you can't see your friends, you can't see your family. There's very many reasons why we would be feeling disturbed. And this relates to something we call the 4 Qs. So we all know about IQ, right? Our mental and cognitive intelligence, problem-solving ability, ability to process knowledge, cognitive capacity, basically, and also to think creatively, to join ideas and create new ones, etc. This is all in the realm of our IQ. And of course, it's not rote knowledge. It requires clarity of thinking. And when you're confused and emotionally feeling down, for example, or if you're angry, it doesn't work. Even our IQ is affected by our emotions very strongly. The second one is what we call EQ, which became very well known in the 1990s by a fairly famous researcher called Daniel Goleman, who took the work of a couple of psychologists from Harvard and coined this term and made it popular. And in emotional intelligence, which is, of course, the quality that's most valued in CEOs, even in the business world, even in hard-edged, practical money-making businesses, emotional intelligence is considered far more of a quality to have than IQ, because it allows us to master the inner world of our emotions. As I mentioned with the check-in exercise, to become aware of how we're feeling. And then once we're aware, to learn how to manage those feelings, which is super important, because there's no point just becoming aware. Because if you become aware that you're angry, how does that help you? You have to know what to do with it then. So emotional intelligence is all about learning to master those emotions, which we do through the practices we'll talk about. Next one is what we call social intelligence, SOQ, which is our ability to communicate effectively with others, not reactively, but, being able to listen well and maybe accept different points of view, learn how to have some sort of a healthy disagreement and integrate perspectives, come to some resolution, which of course is not always easy. It takes practice, but it also takes a lot of inner skill, which we're going to talk about. And of course, this is really, really important in developing healthy relationships and lasting friendships. It's very, very difficult to maintain a healthy relationship with your partner or your spouse if you don't know how to communicate your feelings. So you see how these all go. IQ is at the surface level in a way. It's our ability to work with the mind, be creative, have clarity of thinking, not be confused. EQ takes us down, like we did in the check-in, into the heart. Emotional intelligence, how am I feeling? Once I know how I'm feeling, then how do I allow that to work in my relationships with others? How do I communicate how I'm feeling? What do I communicate? Do I communicate my anger? Not in an aggressive way. I mean, these are skills we have to learn. Do I take it out on myself? Do I suppress my anger so that I end up with health problems? There are so many studies now in the medical field showing the relationship or the connection between many, many diseases, including cancer and suppression of emotions, especially anger. So it's not just about developing healthy relationships. It's also about how we are inside ourselves. And then, of course, in the workplace, or if you're a student at uni at the moment, how do you work with others in teams? And then if we expand it out, how do we contribute to society at large? And how do we overcome our prejudices and judgments? So this is a huge area, SOQ. It's the area of our human interactions, which of course are super, super important. And then the other one, which is spiritual intelligence, which we call SPQ, is all about our inner level of awareness or consciousness. So what do I mean by that? I mean, is it closed, narrow? Are we narrow-minded, set in our ways, limited and rigid in our thinking and feeling? Or are we open-minded, open-hearted? Is our awareness expansive and unlimited and flexible? That's what SPQ is all about. And that we really, this is the sort of the crux of where we can really expand our potential through meditative practices. So just going into that in a little more detail, SPQ, as I said, it's about how expanded our awareness is. How flexible are we? How open to new ideas, new possibilities, etc. are we? So what determines whether it's closed and rigid or open and flexible? And basically, there are two major components to this. The first one is how much mental and emotional baggage we carry from the past. How heavy are we feeling, in other words? So the more layers of heaviness that we accumulate through the day's reactivity, through our past experience, through the fears we've developed from childhood. And of course, most of this heaviness is accumulated in early childhood. It sits in our subconscious mind. Psychologists can tell you all about it. Any of you who are studying psychology will know what I'm talking about. The subconscious is filled with our past experience, and it accumulates like a landfill. It's a rubbish dump, basically. And so what it does is then it creates filters that distort our perception and the flexibility of our mental process. I'll give you an example. My brother, when he was very small, he would have been about 2, he was attacked by an Alsatian dog and he was bitten on the face. And he still has the scar today from that. And as a result of that experience, he developed a really strong fear of dogs. And I mean, I used to tease him about it, which was probably very mean of me as an older sister, but I used to tease him when he was around 12, 13, because whenever we go out walking somewhere and there'd be dogs in people's front yards or roaming on the street, the dog would see me and come up and wag its tail, and I'd pat the dog. And as soon as Jim would be anywhere around, the dog would start barking, because the dog felt the fear that he was radiating from the past experience that was stuck in his subconscious. Eventually it shifted. He got over it, but it stayed there for a long time. And we all have such things from our past experience. These are the repetitive patterns that have emotions associated with them that lead us into being stuck, that we want to get rid of. All the habits we don't like about ourselves. When somebody says something critical about us, instead of accepting it and being happy that they've tried to help us, we get defensive and we react back when they do it. And we say, what are you talking about? Or if someone tells you you're stupid, how do you react? Do you just laugh and say, yeah, okay, I'm stupid? I mean, even if you're not, it doesn't really matter, does it? Or do you get all upset? And like, what's this person saying to me? Why are they telling me I'm stupid, etc.? So we need a way to detach, disassociate from all these past patterns, so that when they're removed, our consciousness expands, our perception expands, our potential expands as human beings, because we're untethered from our past. So this is one aspect of SPQ. The other one is learning to focus our attention. So if you think about what your mind's doing through most of the day, maybe you've never thought about that, but often it's wandering all over the place. It's wandering on. In fact, scientists have shown that most of the time, only half of our attention is on the tasks that we're actually doing. Our mind's wandering on all sorts of other things at the same time, at least 47% of the time. So are we focused only externally during the day, which we have to do for our normal daily life? Or do we also give some time, just a little bit of time in the mornings and evenings, into our daily schedule, so we can turn inwards like we did in the check-in to our inner world? Because think about it for a moment. Our emotions are inside us, right? We don't pluck them from the air outside. They're inside us. Our social skills are inside us. If we're only looking outside, how will we develop any of these quotients, including IQ, but especially EQ, SOQ, and SPQ? It's not possible. Excuse me. So if you don't do any of this stuff, you won't develop those qualities. That's just a given. It's like if you don't do any physical exercise, after some years, you'll end up with your body malfunctioning because it needs exercise to feel good. And as we learn to meditate on the heart, as we learn to do these heart-based practices, we then end up with a lot of qualities that relate to this, because our emotions, our feelings, our inner sense of well-being, our happiness, our ability to love others and receive love from others, all these things relate to the heart. They're not mental things. And so when we start this practice of heartfulness, we start to work on these qualities of the heart. The very first one that develops when we start is contentment. Our attitude, because we're able to just let go, we're able to focus to our center inside. And so we let go of all the peripheral distractions. So instead of desiring this all over the place, we can sort of just ignore all that. We learn to ignore all that, and we focus on our center where we find contentment. So the first quality that arises is contentment. And of course, this is just phenomenal, because when you feel contented with life, then you're very stable. It's like a tree with very deep roots. Things happen. I mean, life happens. Nothing's going to change the behavior of another person necessarily, but when I'm stable, when my roots are strong, I can be contented even when there's chaos going on around me. So this is the first quality of the heart that develops. The second one, as we progress and we become more adept at meditation, is that we are able to we're able to connect with our inner state of peace in our center. We feel calm. We really find that inner peace. And of course, this is another amazing quality. It allows you to pause. It allows you to deal with challenges in a very different way, because you don't get emotionally reactive when challenges come. It's like a nurse in a hospital at the moment dealing with COVID patients. Imagine the difference in capacity between a nurse who reacts emotionally and gets very disturbed at every difficult case that comes in, as opposed to a nurse who has learned to manage those feelings and stay calm, even though she's dealing with exactly the same challenges in the workplace. We all know that the calm nurse would be much more functional in her job. So think about it. Calmness, peace is a really important quality to feel good about yourself, to develop self-confidence, and to really be grounded in yourself for decision-making, for so many things. The next quality that develops in the heart is compassion. Compassion and love, really. I've put compassion there because 5 C's is a nice way to remember it. But this is really compassion and love. And it's our ability to go beyond ourselves and just me. I need this and I'm feeling this, to what's happening with other people as well. What are they feeling? Can I do something today that will help another person? Can I just have a little bit of kindness towards others that will make their day, especially maybe one of your fellow students or your colleagues is really feeling lonely at the moment, or is struggling because one of their family members is sick. Imagine what it does to their day and to you when you're able to be compassionate and reach out to people. The next quality that develops along the way through a heart-based meditation is courage, inner strength. And of course, we all need that at the moment. And we need it in our daily lives. We also need it when we're doing an inner practice. I'm not sure if any one of you, when you did the check-in at the beginning, could see some really difficult emotions, some sadness or some loneliness or whatever, which is perfectly okay. It's a very normal thing to feel. So how do you deal with that? How do you have the courage to face yourself when you close your eyes in meditation and not so pleasant things come up? Or how do you have the courage in daily life when you really mess up? When you hurt another person unintentionally, when you get angry with somebody. And of course, we always get most angry with the ones we love the most, the nearest and dearest to us. Do you have the courage to stop and say, okay, I was wrong, I shouldn't have done that, and go and apologize to the person? Saying sorry is like a magic salve for people. And many of us are not good at it. Many of us let things fester, let things create divisions, conflicts, because we are hurt, or we hurt another person and we don't know how to deal with this. And it takes courage to overcome that, and inner strength to say, let me keep going. Let me just show that person I care, and let me grow and change, become a different person going forward. And then the final quality of the heart, which is really a sum total of all these in a way, when we're able to clear that emotional palette, that canvas, if you like, of all the emotions that we carry, like anxiety, stress-related worries, anger, fear, restlessness, lack of self-worth, guilt, shame, envy, jealousy, all these things. They're all there. They're all human. Nothing wrong with them when we learn how to manage them. And when they go, when we're able to clear that palette, what comes is an amazing sense of clarity, an ability just to be able to listen to the heart and say, this is the right thing to do right now. So this is what we develop through these practices. It's not hard, it just takes a little time, but we get this centeredness. And of course, then our creativity blossoms, our consciousness expands. And we do this in Heartfulness through 4 very simple practices. I'm just going to give you one example. And then after this example, I'm going to bring one of my friends on. I'm going to grill him about his experience with all this. I want to give you the example of resilience. What's resilience? It's one of these qualities associated with courage and inner strength. And of course, it requires calmness and contentedness and all the other C's to be able to function. It's obviously vital even in normal times, but right now in 6th lockdown in Melbourne, it's more vital than ever. So resilience is part of emotional intelligence. It's the courage to recover quickly from challenges and difficulties, to bounce back, if you like. And this is our strength and flexibility of character. This is our ability not to stay stuck and go into the quicksand of what's happening, but to step back and observe a problem or a situation and find solutions. So there are different types of resilience according to psychologists. And the 2 main ones are cognitive resilience, which are our ability to overcome the negative effects of stress on our thinking. Because when you're stressed or when you're angry or when you're fearful, the midbrain takes over, and the amygdala of the midbrain, and this part of your brain, the thinking part of your brain, cannot function. It's why kids with ADHD who are stressed cannot sit in class and concentrate, because the midbrain is active because it's in survival mode. And then the other one is emotional resilience, which is our ability to pause and stay calm when we're in a negative experience, when we're feeling really like we want to react, we want to fight back, or we're feeling sad and hurt and victimized. So both are important. The reason I show you this image here is that this is a seminar that we did in Kenya, in Nairobi in 2018, with a group of youth. So you see how joyful the faces are on these young guys. And these were kids who were doing an employment training program through an NGO because they hadn't had good schooling. And this was a 3-month program. So these were all unemployed kids with very low levels of education, no idea where their next meal was coming from, literally. When we saw their situation, we all cried. When we went into the townships, we cried to see how they were living. Yet, even with all that, look at the resilience on these kids' faces. You can see it. They were able somehow to have that inner strength. And that's something to hold on to for all of us, I think. it taught me so much. I realized how lucky I am, how privileged I am. And do I smile like that all day, every day? Do I show my joy to the world in that way? It was really a very inspirational thing for me personally. Okay, so I'm going to stop the slideshow now and I'm going to stop talking. I want my friend Vicus to join me here. Hi, Vicus.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
How are you this morning?
Yes, it's good. I'm fine. I think I got a decent score.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to having a chat with you. I'm glad that there's quite a few attendees out here. So yeah.
Okay, I'm going to fire some questions at you. I've known you for over 20 years now. And when I first met you, you just arrived in Australia. You'd come, you were doing your MBA, you're on your own. You were like a really young guy, and probably it was your first time out of India.
Yes.
And, you know, I mean, so many things that could have been struggles and challenges, loneliness, adapting to a new culture, away from your family, all those things.
Correct.
And even back then, you'd already started practicing meditation and you used to come for sessions. So since then, I've seen you grow. I've seen you get a job, get married, have kids. Your kids are now adults. You know, life goes on and you've done that whole journey. So I'd like to know from you how meditative practices and detox practices, the things we do in Heartfulness, have helped you on that journey.
Oh, they helped tremendously. Essentially, you know, back in the younger days or back in the uni days when I came to Australia, I kind of realized that I had a lot of improving to do. I was quite impatient. I would take things personally. I was very critical of others. I was, you know, unusually blunt. And once I came here, and as you pointed out, there was that loneliness. The family wasn't here. I found that these meditative practices, the heartfulness meditative practices, actually helped me to get that clarity of how I needed to improve myself, how I needed to change in order to become a better human being in the society, and you know how I communicate with my colleagues or whether it was with my fellow students back then. So it was a process of, it was a journey of evolution for me. But these meditative practices, the detox practices, really helped ground me and gave me clarity to be then able to make the change.
Okay, I'm gonna embarrass you now, because I want you to give me a specific example. I mean, it can be from your student days or your working life or family life. It doesn't matter. We all, you know, we're all imperfect. We all struggle with the same things. So can you share with us how one of the practices actually helped you in a situation to sort of do better?
Well, I think if I go back to my uni days, as many of the university students will probably know, you know, when we do assignments, sometimes there are assignments to be done and submitted as a group. And I remember particularly in my second year in the uni when I did my master's, that in our group, and we were all international students, so the pressure was on all of us. These weaknesses that I identified, they all kind of came in together, and it just kept delaying. It created a conflict within the group, quite a serious conflict, where nothing was getting done, and whether our pass or fail depended on this particular assignment. So I would say one way that I managed to overcome, at least from my side, is to have just to reflect on what has gone on thus far and where the gaps are and how do I bridge the gap by communicating effectively with my fellow students, the group that I was in, and how we overcome these challenges together. Because at least for a moment, I was able to see from their perspective, they too were trying to communicate something back. And perhaps at that stage, I wasn't able to capture it. So I guess once that clarity came, once through calmness and reflection, I was able to see what they were trying to communicate. We managed to bridge the gap and kind of get over the line. As far as work is concerned, I'm in the IT industry, and it's always a very high pressure job. Especially when things aren't working for our customers and there's a downtime. And because of the high pressure, it's how do I deal with someone with empathy? Because yes, they are airing their frustration. Maybe in some cases, they are quite angry about certain situations. And I find that these practices helps me to actually pause and listen to what they have to say and try to find the underlying issue of, where is their upset, where are they coming from? At the end of the day, they mean well, but in the moment, they are just trying to communicate something in the best way that they possibly can. And that's how we ended up building relationships across the board, not just with my peers and colleagues, but also with our customers and also with my student friends. We are still in touch. And I think when I communicate empathetically, or rather listen to them, I found that it kind of changed the relationship completely.
That's great. Because one last thing I want to ask you is, I've talked about these practices and I'm going to share them in a minute, but when you're a student or when you're working and you've got a busy, busy day, you've got maybe exams coming up, you've got deadlines, you've got project deadlines in the IT industry. How do you fit in doing these practices, meditation and the other things I'm going to talk about?
Absolutely. I made it a part of my life. The motivation for me is that my change, I have to make an effort in order to change myself. Yes, it is through the agency of heartfulness practices, where there's a set of practices that you're talking about to our audience. But the fundamental factor is the wanting to change, wanting to be better as a human being. That wanting to change is what then drives me to fit the practice in the day by making suitable changes in my life. So yes, some days are very long, in work, especially my IT work, it can be, 60, 80 hours a week. But still, if I manage it correctly, I'm still able to practice. Why? Because I want to continuously do better and be better.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's really interesting because when you look at the research for the top CEOs in the world, certainly in the US, in the Fortune 500 companies, what's amazing is that everyone who's successful takes the time out to do something for themselves in that way. For many of them, it's meditation. For others, it's 45 minutes of gym every evening. Others go swimming or whatever. But everyone that's successful does that. They don't get sort of swamped by the intensity. They have that ability to pause that you spoke about. Step outside and have the discipline to do that. So it's a very highly effective way of operating if you look at the stats.
Yeah, sure. It definitely helped me a lot, Elizabeth.
You're great. Thank you, Vicus. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. It was lovely talking with you, and I hope you're having a wonderful, happy day today.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me over.
Okay, so let's move on now. One more micro practice that I'm going to teach you, which is for those, this one is particularly for those situations where you're feeling stressed or reactive. As Vicus mentioned, he'd get impatient or he'd be blunt sometimes with people. He'd say something that could hurt another person. When you're blunt, you say something sometimes that comes out wrong. You don't mean it to, but it does. So what do you do in that moment beforehand to prevent that? So this is a yogic practice. It's based on science. For those of you who know about the autonomic nervous system, you know that there are two parts of it. The sympathetic nervous system, which is our active, energetic nervous system, which gets switched on when we need to be active, physically active, and especially when we need extra energy, which is why it's associated with the fight or flight response, which is associated with stress. So it's a normal part of our lives, but we overuse it and we tend to get into chronic stress and then what's called adrenal burnout and all those other things because we overuse the sympathetic nervous system. Because our environment is bombarding us, like I showed you before, screens, mobile phones, you name it. Lots of things are demanding our attention. Lots of things are pulling us outwards. And there are lots of stresses of deadlines, as Vicus said, customers, assignments at uni, etc. The other part of our autonomic nervous system is called the parasympathetic system. And that's the part that gets activated when we relax, when we calm down. And it helps us to digest our food. So it's good to be calm and relaxed when you're eating. Otherwise, you'll end up at my age with digestive problems. All sorts of things go wrong over time if you don't do this for your physical health. But also, it stops you from being reactive in the moment and getting emotionally disturbed by what's happening to you. So it's very simple because when we look at our breathing, I want you to just for a moment, just observe your breathing. Close your eyes if it helps you. Breathe in a few times, breathe out, and see which nostril is breathing more strongly, right or left. There's no right answer to this, by the way. It can be either. Is it right or left or both the same? Generally, you'll find that one is more dominant than the other. And can you just put in the chat which one it is? Okay, we've got a right. Okay. All right, so far we've got all right. So we've got a left, okay? We've got a both, okay, good. So this is a gauge for you. It will tell you which part of your nervous system is stronger in this moment. And it switches every couple of hours. But as well as switching every couple of hours, you'll find that mornings like now, more often, it will be right because you're in active mode. Evenings, it can be more, when you're calm, it will be more likely left, but it varies. And if you find, for example, when you want to go to sleep at night, that your right one is more active, which means your active nervous system is on high alert, you can use this technique. And you can use this breathing technique just to calm yourself down. So what we do is oops, I'm just getting my arrow. Thanks, okay. So put your right thumb over your right nostril. And now I want you to breathe through your left nostril only, in and out through your nose, keep your mouth closed. And breathe all the way down to your abdomen. So deep breaths in. Don't lift your shoulders, but breathe into your abdomen. So we're going to do 10 of these. And I'm going to make a fool of myself and do it in front of you. You all try and copy this. So let's do 10 of these slow, deep breaths through the left nostril. Okay, it's not very difficult, is it? And if you feel it right down into your abdomen, when you breathe in, your abdomen will pop out. When you breathe out, you pull your abdomen in. And it also gives your abdominal area a really good massage while you're doing it. It's great for your body. It clears your head, but it also calms your nervous system and pushes it more into the parasympathetic mode. You can do this anywhere, anytime, and it will just help you to focus and feel good and let go of those negative emotions. So, just to finish up, what I'd like to do is just share with you a little bit about the heartfulness practices. First of all, what is meditation? It's basically just mental and emotional training. Just as you do walking or go to the gym or swimming or whatever for your physical body. If you don't do anything for your mental and emotional well-being, it will also become chaotic and go into disarray, just like the physical body. So meditation is really only this. It's a set of simple techniques to help you manage your mind and your emotions. This is an example of a program that we did on Yoga Day and we do a lot of these outside, and in the US, especially where it's summertime, whole parks are full of people meditating like this, doing heartfulness. Same in Russia. Unfortunately for us, it's midwinter Yoga Day on 21st of June, absolutely midwinter. And so it's more difficult for us to do it outside. But, these are the sorts of programs that we do to help people learn how to meditate. And what it does is it brings what we call 360-degree awareness of problem solving. Our awareness expands and our ability to be empathic expands. This allows us to detect the cause of problems, to develop self-awareness and mastery of our emotions. And as a result of that, then to read the emotions of others and act accordingly. Because I cannot read another person's emotions unless I can read my own. I cannot have compassion for another person unless I have compassion for myself first. I can't really love another person unless I have self-love. This is just the nature of it all. So we start inside with these meditative practices, and that then allows us to respond to the world around us in a better way. So the 4 practices that we start with in heartfulness to develop this mental and emotional well-being, the first one is relaxation. Because unless the body is relaxed, it's very, very hard to meditate. It's hard to sleep. It's hard to focus in your work. It's hard to do anything unless your body is relaxed. And when you relax the body, it again, like the left nostril breathing, it takes you out of that chronic stress mode into a more calm approach to what you're doing. So there's a simple 5-minute relaxation. And tomorrow at 12:30, we'll be doing a practical session of all these. So you're welcome to join. And then on Thursday and on Sunday, again, we have more practical sessions. Plus, as well as that, you can contact us anytime. You can do our online courses. There's many ways you can follow up with this, which I think at the end of this, we'll show you a couple of slides on that. Second practice is meditation. Learn to calm and regulate your mind. Learn to turn your focus inwards, as I mentioned before. Just shut out the outside world for a moment. Regenerate yourself. Feel calm. Feel that joy that comes out of your heart once you're centered in yourself. The third practice, remember I mentioned that we need to get rid of these past habits and neural programs that keep us stuck in our old patterns. So we have a practice called cleaning to remove the deep-seated impressions from our energy field. And what this does is it just makes us feel more carefree, more rejuvenated. Just we let go of all the sort of the negative emotional things that tie us into certain ways of reacting. So we're getting rid of our reactivity through this cleaning process. And this is done in the evening after the day's work, before we relax with family or friends or whatever. It's like taking a bath or a shower, but for your inner world. And then the fourth one is a practice we do before sleeping, so that we center ourselves and connect deep within the heart to our inner self before sleeping. And the effect of this is just phenomenal. It allows us to have a night's sleep that is really refreshing. We wake feeling alive and vital. It's only a 5-minute practice. So none of these are long practices, but doing these 4 in a day, can just completely transform you. As Vicus said, if you want to change, you need tools to change. So these are the practices we do to change. That's it from me. If you have any questions at this stage, put them in the chat. Somebody asked, can you have a copy of the slides? Yes, of course. I can share them with, from our side, our organizer can share them with the India Week organizers. You're very welcome to them. Just know that they're Heartfulness copyrighted, so you can't just take them and use them yourselves because these belong to Heartfulness, but you're welcome to them. Thank you, Karen. So somebody asked, Carolyn asked, I would like to know more about the cleansing stage. All right. It's a simple mental practice. We do it in the evening. You actually use the capacity of your mind to remove all the impressions from your system. You'll do this through the sessions practically. It's best to do it as a guided practice. What we do, just to give you an overall idea, and it works more effectively once you've been introduced to the practices in general. But what you do is you sit with your eyes closed, comfortably relaxed, and you use the subtle suggestion of the mind, the willpower of the human mind, to visualize everything that you've accumulated during the day, all the emotional and mental impressions that you've accumulated during the day. You visualize them going out your back. When I say your back, from your tailbone all the way to the top of your head. So basically your torso and head, that whole area. So you visualize all these impressions that are there in your energy field going out your back in the form of smoke. And you do this for a while, just like taking a shower. You don't look at each piece of dirt on your body and say this came from there. You try not to focus on the why or the where of it, just letting it all go. Imagine it that it's all going like clouds passing in the sky. You don't need to know the details. You just want to clean, just remove it all. And you do that for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes. It gets faster as you get better at it. But you do this, and eventually as you feel lighter, and you'll feel the lightness in your system. You'll feel like, oh my goodness, it's all gone. I've let go of today. And when you do that, then you fill that vacuum that you've created in yourself. You fill it with positive energy. And anyway, we're going to do a guided session tomorrow on this. John's just saying, John is one of the trainers. We're all certified trainers here who are on these sessions. John will do a session with you tomorrow on this. So you can learn this very, very simply. All the practices are free of charge. So it's, it's not arduous to try it yourself and see whether you like it. So that's the cleaning. And it's, as you mentioned, Carolyn, it's a really important one. If you can master this process, you can manage your emotions. It's incredible. I think we might have, no, we don't really have time for one more question, or maybe we do if anybody has. Thank you, Malini. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope you join the other sessions as well. We have 5 more sessions coming up during the week, and we have 2 more wisdom sessions, and I'll be on the 3rd one with my friend Abhijit. The second one is on food and diet, but as well as that, there'll be 3 practical sessions where you can learn all these 4 practices. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful day, and look forward to interacting with you again. Let me just check on the Q&A. Oh no, there's There's no more questions. Thank you, everybody. Avinash, do you want to put the contact details up on the screen for everybody? This is just to give you an idea of the times and dates for the sessions. Also, how you can meditate with a trainer. And how you can join an 8-week course if you want to, which is a mixture of yoga and meditation. A lot of chair yoga, so you don't have to be super flexible. And you can also join by downloading our app, magazine, many ways you can interact with us. Bye, everyone, and have a great day.